Hello, this is Bill Bryson with bwcacast.com. We are just really excited to have teamed up with blackriversleds.com to bring you another how-to video. On this episode, we're going to show you how to build a snow trekker sled. These toboggans are just great when you're out winter camping. You can load up all your gear on these things and it just goes right across the top of the lakes, and portage is just slick. This high density polyethylene plastic just slides really nicely across the snow and the ice, and it's amazing how much you're able to bring in with you when you've got a sled like this. So let's get to it. We're going to start off with working with the cross pieces, these pieces right here, how we get those prepped and ready to go, and we'll take you through all the steps on putting together your new toboggan from blackriversleds.com. Okay, we're going to take our cross pieces that came with our sled kit and drill the holes that allow the rope to run under the cross pieces when it's attached to the sled. These are the ropes that make the running line that we can use to lash our gear down with. We can do this very easily by taking two of the cross pieces, placing them back to back, and clamping them in a vise. You can use clamps if you have those at home, but I've got a drill press here that I can use, and I'm going to clamp them into this vase and make sure I've got the ends flushed up. And then I'm going to take a pencil and mark off 1 inch from the end. And this is where we're going to drill the center of our hole, 1 inch from the end. Okay, once I've got that marked off, we're ready to drill a pilot hole. And it's always a good idea to start with a pilot hole, especially, you know, we're going to be using a 1/2 inch drill bit here in a little bit, and that's quite a bit of wood to be chewing out of these cross pieces. So by drilling a pilot hole, we can ensure that we get about as accurate placement on that hole as possible. When you are drilling this, you're going to want to back the drill bit out periodically as you're going into the wood to remove those wood chips out of there to keep it from binding up. It's really a good idea to do that when you're drilling holes like this. And also, just safety, make sure you've always got some safety glasses on when you're working with stuff like this. You don't want anything to pop into your eye and cause you any irritation. So safety glasses is always a good idea when you're working. I'm going to get this lined up as close as I can before I even start. And we're going to give it a go. If you're concerned about making sure you're getting far enough down into the wood to go all the way through, you can measure it out ahead of time. Bring this over here, drop it down, and put a piece of tape on here so you know that that's how far you need to go down. So I'm going to drill the other side, and then we can move on to the bigger diameter bit. Okay, we're going to now start with the bigger bit here and drill the rest of the hole. I've got it lined up again on here, and I'm just going to go ahead and guide it down here, make sure it's pretty close to where it's at, and then we're going to drill on through this. Now you can see the bigger hole. There's one last step that we need to do, and that's put the beveled edge on. I'm going to go ahead and drill this other side first, and we'll talk about that next. Okay, the final step in getting these things carved out, I'm going to use this hand router here and bevel this edge a little bit. It's going to get rid of the sharp corner or edge that's left over from just doing a straight drill cut. And we're going to use this hand router here to just kind of bevel out that edge. It's going to make a nice rounded finish when we're done, and will allow for a nice smooth area for the rope to slide through. We've lowered the bit back inside the handheld unit here far enough so that it makes a nice arc in the wood. And what I'm going to do here is just kind of get my arms set, stabilized on the table here, and just drop it, turn it on, drop it in the hole, and then whirl it around a little bit. And it should make a nice polished edge. Here we go. And now it's a nice rounded edge. I'll see if I can turn it here so you can see it a little bit. You can see here that it's just a nice beveled edge, and that rope will slide in and out there very nicely. I just have to do the other side and the other end of the board as well. So I'll go ahead and do those now. Man, that comes out nice. All right. Now, you can see here that we've got a nice hole here for running the rope through when it gets bolted down to the sled there. And it's got a nice rounded beveled edge there. I'm just going to go ahead and finish up the rest of these, and we'll move on to the next part of the sled. All right, we finished putting in the holes on the underside of our cross pieces here, and got them, use that hand router to make that edge nice and smooth for the rope going through there. We're now applying some linseed oil to help kind of protect it throughout the winter and when it gets a little bit wet from the snow. We're going to apply this here and make sure, even though it's soaking in nicely, we're going to apply it on here and then wipe it as clean as we can afterwards so that we don't have any excess. If you do have a lot of excess linseed oil on the wood when you're finished, it can dry on there kind of tacky, or kind of can build up on there, and you don't want to have that build up. So wipe it in there and then wipe it down nice and as best you can when it's done. It'll soak into the wood nicely. And it's really making a nice change here. You can see the color change that we're getting once we apply the linseed oil. This is on the top here. So the HDPE sled here, this black plastic part that makes the bottom of our sled, came pre-drilled from Black River Sleds. And to ensure that our cross piece here is going to be screwed into the middle of the board from the bottom, what we've done is we've applied some masking tape here. We hold the edge of the board in front of one of the holes, and we just kind of eye up where the middle of the board's going to be. And then we put a piece of masking tape down on the edge of the board so we can line up after the fact. We've got them all set. We can line them up, clamp it down, and then we can go ahead and screw them in. And then we know that we're getting the screw coming from the bottom side right into the nice middle part of the cross piece, and it should hold firmly for a long time. All right, what we've done here is we took the first piece and lined it up on the ends of the sled here and clamped it down. We're now going to flip this thing over and start screwing in these cross pieces.
All right, basically we have these countersunk holes on the bottom of the sled, and they're lined up with the center of the wooden strip, and we are just going to start them. Just go nice and easy. You don't want to over tighten these because it'll strip the screw, either the threads on the screw or else where the Phillips is connected there. And on this one we have, this is the very front of the sled, and it has to have 2 drilled holes, so we're going to drill those. And it's 1/4 inch hole. Okay, after the first board, we actually split it. So now what we're going to do is pre-drill these. And the best way to do this is just take a piece of tape, wrap it around the drill bit at the depth you want to go, and then just come into here. And just go until the tape hits the bottom. And that should keep it from splitting out. And what we're using here to clamp these down is just a quick grip. Works nice, especially if you're doing a bunch of things like this. And when we get to these center ones, to grip them, you're going to cover up your holes. So we'll cover those up, put these screws in, and now we can pre-drill these holes. Put these screws in. And this being the second one, it's also going to take 2 holes right through the board. And this is going to be for the tow rope.
All right, so we're down to our final cross piece here, the one that goes on the end of the sled, the tail end of the sled. And we've routed in 3 grooves in here. And what that's for is the 2 end ones, just like all the rest of them, run the lashing lines down each side of the sled. But at the very end of the sled, the rope comes in along the edge and then through this middle hole and ties in a loop in the back. And what this loop allows you to do is, if you come to a hill, you can grab onto this loop on the back of the sled and lower your sled down the hill instead of having it chase you down the hill if you're in front. So what we're going to do now is screw this down in place, but at the very end, a rivet. This little copper rivet right here is going to come up through the bottom, and we're going to snip that off and put this copper washer on there and pound it in, and that's going to just kind of add some extra rigidity to the area. And that line that comes through, the rope goes on either side of this copper rivet and kind of helps hold things in place nicely. So we're going to get started on that right now.
All right, this is the last one again, like Bill was just talking about. And this hole here is going to actually get drilled all the way through for that copper rivet. So we're going to pre-drill these 2 because they'll have the normal screws in them. this hole, we can, we'll wait till the end just so we don't take the tape off on accident here. Drilling all the way through. Okay, and now this is the last one, and normally on all the other ones this would get a screw too, but because this rope is going to be passing through here, we're going to put that copper rivet. So this one's going to get pre-drilled all the way through. Just like that. And here's what the copper, this is the copper nail.
So now that we have all of our cross pieces screwed down to the board, we're ready to start running our lines that go down either side of the sled that we're going to use to strap things down with. And they actually start off in the middle of the sled. They go right through the middle of this back cross piece. And we're going to make sure that we run one piece of strand of the rope on either side of the rivet. Once we get through that hole, one goes one way and the other one goes the other way. And they loop back through the edge holes and they start doing some half hitches as they work their way down the sled. On the very back corners, we have this piece right here. It's going to be where our strapping, our webbing that straps our gear down starts, and we'll get to that later, but that's actually going to go into the rope here on the end. These other pieces that come with are going to go along on the intermediate cross pieces, and they're actually going to go on either side like this with the rope running through them. And from there, the webbing that we have is going to cross over through these rings and hold our gear down. So we're going to start working on that process right now. Okay, so we've ran our rope through all the way till we're just left with a little bit of a bite. Now a bite on rope is a loop. The ends of the rope we call tails. But anyway, so we've got a bite of rope here, and what we're going to do is tie this in with a figure-8 knot so it leaves a nice big loop to grab onto with a nice, even if with a mitten on our hands, we can still grab onto these. So I'm just going to go ahead and tie this figure-8 in here and make sure that I have enough slack here for a mitten. And there we've got a nice figure-8 and a loop to hold on to. And the nice thing about a figure-8 is you still have the ability to pull it apart afterwards, but it will be a big enough knot to where it won't allow the knot to go through this hole down here. So we should be good to go there. Okay, so for doing these back ends here, what we're going to do is take the rope and run it back through this end piece and run it back over the top of the board and through again. And I'm going to make this kind of crisscross over a bit, and then when I pull this piece through, I actually run it through this loop here, so it kind of makes it almost like it ties it in place when I get it all said and done. Before we finish this piece off here, there's one last step, and that is putting in this end ring that's going to hold down our webbing. And so we're going to just stick that through there like a half hitch, you know, so just pop it through and run the ring back through the loop and get that down kind of held nice and tight. Now we can move on our way down the sled. For these ones, now for all the middle cross pieces, we have a different ring system, and this is what allows the webbing to weave back and forth through these rings. So to do those, similar process, we're going to run the line through the first loop on the ring and get some of our slack out. The rope then goes over the top of the cross piece, back down through the hole. It goes over the cross piece again, back down through the hole. And then it comes back underneath itself, and that locks it all in place. Then we can, once it gets on the other side, we pull the slack through, we can run through the other side of the ring, and it holds that ring in place. All right, well, we've ran the rope the rest of the way through the cross pieces. The last step is at the third cross piece down. We ran these clips, and these are the ones that the webbing clips into and cinches down with. Same concept as we did earlier with the rings, instead of running the strap on either side, we just ran the webbing through and did a half hitch. Actually, just like we did at the back end of the sled. And then these are ready to go. We're now gonna make that curl on the front of the sled. The ropes get done with the cross pieces and they go up to the first cross piece all the way through the sled to the other side. So we're gonna curl that back over and tie a knot in each one of those lines, and that'll hold the sled curl and help plow through some of the snow if you have any deep snow. And then once we get those knots put on each end, we're gonna tie the ends together, and that makes a nice handle for grabbing the sled. Through this second piece, through this rope hole here, is actually the harnessing system that actually attaches to me when I'm pulling the sled. And we'll show that in a second. So we're gonna go ahead and bend this thing over.
About there, you think?
Yeah, probably right about there. And I'm gonna go ahead and tie this knot in here. And once we have that knot in place, that side's good. Now the only thing we want to watch for is that we have the knots at an even spot, so when we let it up, it's square.
That looks pretty good.
There we go. All right, and so that holds the front curl on, and then we can take this into the rope here and just tie it over, and that makes a nice handle in the front. All right, well, we're finally gonna start working with this rivet here. All we need to do is take the washer that came supplied with it, drop it down over the top of the rivet there, and then we're gonna use these snips here and snip it off about 1/4 of an inch. Once that's done, we can pound that in place. And what we've done for that is we've taken a screw and screwed it into a piece of wood. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna be able to slide up inside the inset bottom and hold the head of the rivet in place when we hammer back down on it. And that'll keep it from sliding back down through the bottom of the hole there. So we'll see how this goes. And once you get that hammer down in place, that'll keep it from coming out the back end. And you're pretty much ready to start stringing your webbing through, and you're ready to go. We hope that by watching this video, you'll be able to put your sled together. And if you have any questions, feel free to email blackriversleds.com or bwcacastfriends@gmail.com. And either of us would be willing to help you out with any questions you might have. Thanks for watching. This is Bill Bryson and Jesse Glass with bwcacast.com.